Okay, looks like we are live. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes here, give everybody a chance to hop in. We are just a touch early, but I like trying to make sure everything's all set and working. We will be live on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter/X, and on Facebook today. So we will be all over the place. So if you're looking to participate, you should be able to do that on your platform of choice for the most part. But yeah, we're gonna basically what we're gonna do with today's stream, and I'm just kind of checking everything here. We want to. Oh my goodness, everything's on. There we go. Y'all don't need me in surround sound or echo, because that would be terrible. No, but the idea is like we're getting toward the end of the season. Metagame shifted a little bit. Like some people here at the end might just be looking to fix up a deck. So we're gonna help you out. Here's the thing though. We don't want to see a bunch of decks that are like if you're going to show me like your Esper Legends deck, where we already know what that is, right? There's not going to be much to help you with. This is for people who have like a deck just off the beaten path, or you're trying to weird combo around certain cards, or maybe you're built around a certain enchantment or whatever, right? Where you need that extra little bit of help to try to get over the hump. That's what this is for, to help people out that need that. Um Now I will give you the details here in a second on the way we're going to get deck lists. So when we say go, then you can post it. If you post up before that, it's not going to count. But we're going to have a Discord. So because you can't post links on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, you need to go to the Discord. We have a standard section. You could just post it in there. A link, not the deck, a link to your deck. Because I don't want to clutter up the Discord either. If you're on Twitch, if you're on Facebook, I believe you can just post a link to wherever your deck list is. So basically, host it somewhere, wherever that is. I put mine on Moxfield. You can put them on any site you want, and then I can go get it from there. And then we'll bring it up on screen, and then we'll talk about it. I don't know how many we're gonna get through today because I'm only doing this for about an hour and a half. Let's see, it's 3:15 local time. So yeah, maybe because I do still have to get some stuff recorded and I have some things going on this evening. Also, look, no glasses today. That's a weird. No, my glasses didn't break or anything. I have a selection of glasses. I just have contacts in today. So it's been rainy and trying to do stuff outside. It's just easier not to have the glasses on sometimes. All right, let's get caught up here with the first few folks. Uh, People commented on the silly thumbnail for this. It's become a running gag. I just try to find something that makes sense. I slap my face on it, build a background, and then just post it. So glad y'all appreciate it though, because it is a stupid thing that I am entertained by. So I'm glad y'all are entertained by it. Do, 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 do. Any preference for besting it? No, honestly, here's the thing. It's just best to engage you wherever you're at, right? Some people may prefer Twitch because they watch it on mobile and Twitch has a good mobile app. Maybe you just watch on YouTube and you want to watch on YouTube. Wherever you're at doesn't bother me. If anything, I just hope that you at least hit the like button or a thumbs up and let people know that you like the stream because that helps. If you would be so kind as to subscribe, or if you're on YouTube, even become a channel member, there's benefits for all that stuff and it would be great, but nobody is obligated. Also, if you're on YouTube, live super chats and whatnot are there and available. Probably get priority, just saying, but Um, good evening to you, Gatewatch. How's it going? Okay, so if now you can go. So if you got deck lists, let's see them. Post them on your favorite channel, wherever you're at. Or if you're going to be posting them in the Discord, make sure they are in the standard section with a deck list ready to go. Looks like I got one from Tall Paul in there, so I'm gonna keep a set of notes here so I can keep it in order as I see them pop up. Oh, on Deckbox. I hadn't seen anybody post on Deckbox in a minute. That's cool. I still see it around. I know it still exists. Let's see. Can I? Well, let's see. Does it show? It does show a deck list. Let me see if I can export from here. Export to Arena. Oh, it actually tells me I have to log in to export a deck list. Oh, that's not good. Can I get this deck list any other way? from here without I don't even think I have an account on Deckbox. Maybe I do. I wouldn't remember what the password is. Yeah, Paul, I might need to have you put that somewhere else. It actually won't let me export to Arena without logging in. I think that's the only site where that's the case. That's actually kind of crazy. I've not seen that anywhere else. That's pretty wild. I didn't know that was even a thing. Crazy. Okay, well, now I know. Like today I learned a thing. Didn't know that's what was up, but now we do. Okay. Well, if anybody else has a deck list in the meantime, I will take a look at it while Paul is getting his up somewhere else. But I will say standard is still kind of wide open right now. I think, don't be wrong, like there are decks and some cards we're going to see more of than not, right? Like that's just the way it's always going to be. But there's a whole variety of things you can play and still get wins. I mean, heck, the last few days we've played some very different decks and managed to still get some of them were barely over 50-50, but still got wins, so you can still win with a lot of things out there. I mean, we even played a goblins deck, a blink deck, a dollhouse deck. The dollhouse deck, I think it needs some work, honestly. I wouldn't like if you just like that style of deck, play it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. The Ishin deck was really good. I think I only lost one game with that, and it was the game I just drew a bunch of lands effectively. But yeah, there's still a ton of things you can do. That's for sure. But yeah, if you want to drop something in the Discord, go for it. Because I have time. That's what today is for. This is me giving time back to y'all because y'all watch my videos and y'all subscribe to my stuff and y'all are YouTube members. Also, don't forget that if you are a YouTube member at our highest level, you can send a deck list to me. I have a form set up that it goes right to my email privately every time, and then you can just get personal help and responded to. So that's the thing that happens there for you. And there's a bunch of other things that are other levels too, but you do get extra footage, extra videos. I'm actually coming up with a plan to maybe start showing videos for members that don't, or games that don't actually make the cut on different videos. You get to decide because I normally put out 4 or 5 times during the season different types of decks people want to see, maybe even choices of what goes up next on the channel, stuff like that for people that are members. So you get to have kind of a say in what you're going to see and what shows up if you are a member on the YouTube channel. Lauren says, I don't know, man. Ramp seems like a lot of absurd payoff. Yeah, Ramp's still really good. I mean, I say that our payoffs really are kind of depending on the wrap you're playing, right? They're either some combination of Atali, Breach, or in some cases, even Nissa, right? That's kind of what Ramp is leading to these days. These are all standard that I'm doing updates for. I mean, I can look at other stuff, but I won't have as good advice as I will for standard stuff. If you just want to get some help or you have some questions, sure, we can still talk about it. But generally, it's going to be standard stuff. All right, so it looks like I have Paul and then Sergio are the first two. So let me pull up Paul's list here. Since the one on Deckbox did not work, I know I can export stuff here on Moxfield, so I will take that, copy to Arena, and then I will bring up Arena and we will start looking. Oh, funny that this is a mono blacklist because I actually am working on one right now that y'all might see in a couple days. So this is good timing that this is up. Sergio says, I just lost a game where let me bring this up. Says, I just lost a game where my opponent just played Mana Dorks and then Breach and Atali. Yeah, that's a real thing. I mean, you kind of have to know those are coming and do what you can to play around them. All right. So here's what we got. Corrupted Convention, Ichor Drinker. This is like a version of what I already have. Like, seriously, hold on a second. Do I have that list somewhere here? I thought I was working on one. Did I not? Wow, is this deja vu? Because I swear I have a list that's maybe it's this one. Okay, I'm not crazy. because I was working on a list and I'm like, did I just magically dream I had a list that was very similar to this? No, this is actually similar to what I was going with. So I have this as the version I would probably play of that. I've been messing around with it and I never put it on Arena. I mean, into a video yet. But basically, this just more. I like. I don't think the version you have is bad, but I wanted more consistency, which I think I get from Evolve Sleeper, being able to draw cards and whatnot. Uh, Ichor Drinker, I've seen some other lists trying to play this when they're trying to go hardcore aggro, but truthfully, I think it's a little bit overrated. Like it's a very like it's still just a 1/1. Like sure it has lifelink and that's all great, but at the end of the day, it's still just a 1/1, right? Like and we know how many times your graveyard's getting exiled and all that. So you're not even guaranteed to get the incubator token. And you're really only wanting to do that if your board got swept or something or whatever, and then now you can make another body, right? I think that's the issue there. Man says, "What's your Discord name?" You don't need to go, like, you just need to go to the Discord link in the description and then go to my standard section. Do not send me a message directly. I won't see it because I don't look at notifications while I'm live. That's why I tell you to put it in that section of the server. I try my best when I'm live to ignore all my notifications because I have stuff coming in on Twitter, on my phone, on Discord, whatever. And otherwise, I just be checking those the whole time. And I've had some people be mad, honestly, because they'll say, like, oh, well, I sent you this thing, you didn't respond. And I'm like, bro, I was live for like 2 hours. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, like, sorry. Also, if I miss you because you subscribed or whatever, I try to give you a shout out at the end or at least send you a thank you message. I've had somebody before be mad because they either sent a super chat or they subscribed on Twitter or something, and I didn't immediately respond. And it's like sometimes in the middle of doing this where I'm on a deck list or I don't see the notifications because of how all the different apps work with each other. So sometimes I have to do follow-ups or sometimes I miss them. It's not I don't appreciate it because I really do. Just kind of till these things all get worked out when you're multi-streaming. Sometimes stuff's going to fall through the cracks. But yeah, I like this list a little bit better. I still think, I mean, really, this was kind of an excuse to try to use Corpse of the Lost. Like this was the real reason I wanted to build this list, to just say, all right, we have a few skeletons, so like maybe we could take advantage of it. But the truth is, this card's pretty medium. It's not great, but it can do stuff. I mean, I think at the end of the day, Shieldred's still a great card. Preacher of the Schism, still a great card. Tenacious Underdog, still a good card. So, like, you have enough things you can lean on to make a game out of it, regardless, you know. Saying which section? The one labeled standard? like, like I've mentioned 3 times, but yeah, the standard. That's where you post it. But yeah, it's I don't know how great this list is. Like I said, I've played 0 games with it so far. It's just something I've been turning around in my head of like, can we go actual aggro with a little bit of backup between Corpse of the Lost, Preacher of the Schism, and Shieldred, right? Basically, if you have a fast start, can these 3 cards carry, right? The finish. Can we get the opponent low enough or stall out against mono red or the aggro decks enough that these 3 cards are problematic for them? I believe the answer is yes, you can, but it's all theoretical. But if you wanted to play it, this is probably something like this I would start with. I'll probably have this in a video in, I don't know, by the end of next week, probably, but we'll see. The great mistake is let's see. Not honestly, not really. Not really. The problem is this card doesn't do much. It's like, one, it's 5 mana. So that's the first issue, right? If you're playing an aggressive deck, you're not trying, like 5 mana is not really what you're aiming for. And I'd almost argue there's probably better 5 mana or even 4 mana things I would play before this, because like Archfiend of the Lost or whatever that thing is, the 6/6 for 4, like I'd probably play that before this. This does have Vigilance and Menace, which is nice, but it is only 4 toughness. It has Descend 8, which is a little bit wild. And then you can return it from the graveyard, which is nice. but you activate it only if there's 8 or more permanents in your graveyard, and only as a sorcery, which I always hate only as a sorcery, but they arbitrarily put that on cards these days. Um, yeah, I'm just not feeling this. Like, it's cool that you can get it back into play, and I mean, I guess it has haste if you have Corpse of the Lost down. But yeah, I don't know what the home for this card is. I really don't. Like, I've considered it in a few lists, and every time I start, I just pull it. It never even like it doesn't even get to where I start playing games with it. When I have to make cuts, it's always this card. And again, it's because like, all right, do you want this or do you want a Force Shieldred? Right? Do you want this or do you want Archfiend? In a deck where you're already trying to be aggressive, right? I can drop this more consistently, and if my opponent blocks any of my stuff, they're going to lose 2 life on top of it anyway. So like, this would just be a better option. And honestly, that's one of the things where, and I'm going to be working on a video for just like overrated cards and underrated cards from the next set. But part of the discussion we have to have sometimes is cards can be really good and still just not get played, because there's cards that are just outright better for what you're trying to do. And where we're talking about this card here, what does it do other than come back from the graveyard? And even that's for 6 mana. What does it do that's better than what any of the other cards do that you would play at 4 or 5 mana in place of it, right? That becomes the question. Now, there is an argument that if we were in a, let's just pretend, like a 1-year standard, then a card like this might get played because you just have fewer options. But we're in a 3-year standard, so there's just way more available, and means cards like this are just not going to get to see the light of day a lot of times, right? Especially when the other things are lower cost, higher toughness, you know, practically guaranteed damage. Like, it's hard to want to justify a card like this. I like it. I've started it with it in list because I want to play it, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't make the cut. So yeah, uh, and also just for exercise, there are not a lot of good skeletons right now. Like, this is your selection of skeletons that are available in standard. I mean, this becomes a skeleton, so I don't think that really counts. And you have to build your deck differently to even take advantage of it. This also becomes a skeleton. I mean, you can at least use it as a discard spell early, but then you have to play other artifacts, so you have stuff to discard it to, right? So that's a thing. And then you've got this thing, which is a 1/1 for 1, and it can come back, but it comes back tapped. And you're spending 3 mana to just get a 1/1 back. Even if you have Corpses of the Lost, you're getting a 2/1 back. So it's just like, this is hard to justify. This is at least somewhat reasonable, but unless your opponent's corrupted, it's just a Grizzly Bear, right? It's just a 2/2 for 2. Lauren says, not much meat on the bone. That's good, actually. You're right. That's real good. Got any Jund mid-range builds featuring dinosaurs? Go through my channel. Like, I have a bunch of thumbnails. Just look at all the Jund ones. I've built almost every color combination at some point during the season, so feel free. PD, I recently played a variation of your Jund fight rigging deck, which is funny. We were just talking about Jund decks. There you go. And was able to beat the domain deck by milling them. Wow. Okay. Wouldn't have expected that, but that's cool. That's a good way to go. Oh, I guess you would, because you have access to like Atali and then Breach. Yeah, okay. I can see how you could mill them. That's fair. I could see that. But yeah, this is a deck, like I said, I'll probably mess around with at some point. Just haven't had a chance to get it into a video yet. But it's cool that other people are interested in it. That tells me a little bit. All right, the other people I have in order. Let's see. I've got Sergio next. We've got Travis Decker is up after that, and then Lazy Chicken after that. All right. Let me make sure we don't have anybody hanging out that I'm missing on the other sites. Nobody on Twitch in line, nobody on Facebook in line. Hello, welcome though. Told you that are hopping on over there. Much appreciated and good to see you. Dun, 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 dun. All right, cool. Then we will take a look at Sergio's deck next and see what we got. Hosted over on the Aether Hub. Let's see what we got. Copy that and bring it in over here. Let's see what we're working with. This is a mono green list, it says. All right, this would be interesting. What are we working with? We've got Familiar, Glimpse the Core, Nissa, Spelunking, Topiary Stomper, Conduit of Worlds, Tortoise, Nissa. Open the way. X can be greater than the number of players in the game. Reveal cards from top of your library until you reveal X land cards. But X can't, so you can't be more than 2? I think that's why I didn't like this card. Like, so, I mean, I guess you're paying 4 to put 2 lands into play. I mean, I guess that's fine. Yeah, I just don't there's a lot of cards here that I don't think you even need to play if you're trying to beat your opponent down with green creatures. I mean, reason being you're only playing 20 creatures because you're already trying to squeeze in all these other ramp things. And you're going to have a couple of issues against things like, say, mono red, right? Because you don't have anything early, really, except for Bramble Familiar. So that's not helping. And Topiary Stomper, believe it or not, oftentimes is a liability against mono red because you simply can't block anything for the first few turns. And while you do have a lot of ways to ramp and whatever, sometimes it's just hard getting that 7th land into play to be able to block with the Topiary Stomper. Also, Conduit of Worlds, another card that I have tried. I don't even think I'd be exaggerating and say 20 decks with this in there. And it just never, ever does anything. I say never, ever. Nothing's 100%, obviously. But the majority of the time, it just doesn't do anything. Partly because a lot of your stuff just gets exiled. You know, there's just a good exile removal. There's stuff removing stuff from graveyards. There's even more coming in the next set, right? So that's already the first issue. The other thing is, it does limit your turn, right? Because there's sometimes you're like, okay, well, I kind of want to get this ramp spell out of my hand and play something out of the graveyard, but like you can't do that. You have to choose, you know, right? So just like, all right, I either have this card just wasted in my hand, or I get to try to rebuild the board. So yeah, I like Virtue of Strength. It's neat, doesn't really do much. I mean, you don't have an X spell. You don't you don't have a payoff for this. And since you don't have a way to draw cards, you're not really loading your hand up with anything. You know what I mean? So I would start by like Spelunking's cool. You know, draw a card, you can put a land from your hand into play, but like I would more consistently just have that either just be a ramp spell or be an artifact creature ramp thing that makes mana. Like that just makes more sense to me. And then if you really want to load up with something like Tribute to the World Tree or something like that, honestly. Because unfortunately, what happens with the way this is built is you're just going to end up with too many times where the cards in your hand just don't get to the table in time. And honestly, overrated. I don't ever put this in any of my ramp decks. Just overrated, doesn't do much. Because the reality is, these are the only 2 things you have really that trample. So stuff being doubled, if your opponent's just jump blocking with 1/1s or whatever, anyway, it doesn't matter. And usually, if your guys are big enough, you're already punching through and winning the game regardless. So I'd rather cut Zapandrel and just play more Titan, Tyrannix Rex, and Titan of Industry. Mostly because these 2 cards can get you out of trouble, right? Like after a sweeper, you can play Tyrannix Rex and then put your opponent on notice. Titan of Industry can literally come out, get rid of a problematic card, gain you 5 life, or get you 2 blockers and do something else, right? These cards are just better than Zapandrel by a long shot. Spelunking Nissa to generate a lot of mana, sure, but I wouldn't play more than 2 Nissa. I think Nissa, unless you, I like, this is a weird thing because this is my experience, and I may be wrong, but this is my experience with Nissa, is that even when getting it, there's a lot of times where I might play a ramp spell, get a land, get extra mana, but then it's just not enough, right? I don't these decks aren't built with enough 2 and 3 mana things that you get to do something, get a land, get that mana, do the next thing. Because you're really just needing to do the big thing more often than not, right? That's the issue. At least that's what it's been for me. So like I'm willing to be wrong on that, but Nissa just has not come through for me. So I would cut these. I would cut like Spelunkings. I'd play another Tortoise because that's good. I'd cut the Conduits. Nissa's great. Virtue, I don't really care for in this list. I would swap the Open the Ways for, or actually, no. What is that thing called? It's the Expel, this, Awaken the Woods. Because you can outright like Awaken the Woods for like 5 and then just play Nissa and win. Right? That just gives you another just like auto win if your opponent doesn't wipe your board. Like this is just better. Like this is going to be like, okay, cool, you got 2 lands. But if this is like later in the game, you already have a pile of lands because you've done all this other ramping or whatever. You're like, great, opponent swept the board. I'll just make 6 dudes. Go. You know what I mean? Whereas you top deck this after you already have all your land, and it's like, great, I have 2 more land, but it doesn't really do anything. So yeah, I just cut those. Add a pile of these. Some like some combination of go to another Bramble Familiar, because Bramble Familiar, again, late in the game, you can just go try to find a Titan or Tyrannix Rex or whatever, right? And you got 8 cards left. I would probably play some number of Loam Speaker. Still with 3 cards left. What if you went? How many cards are on the upper end? We've got 8. Man, I probably at least 2 tributes. And then whatever else. I don't know. I kind of like Vorinclex, actually. I don't hate that. Because you really, maybe. I mean, the problem is, I've seen lists like this also playing Beanstalk. But the problem is, like, you don't have that many spells that trigger it. Realistically. Like, now we added one more, and I guess you could Awaken the Woods to trigger it now. But you really didn't have all that many previously. So maybe you could try 1 or 2 Awaken or Beanstalks if you wanted to. This has 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I don't even know what Volatile Fault is. Destroy target non-basic land. Opponent controls that player. Search your library for a base land. Put it on the battlefield. Then shuffle, and you create a treasure. So wait, you don't. So it's 1 less than a whatever you want to call it, demolition field or whatever. But instead of you searching for a land, you make a treasure instead. I don't does this deck need this? Like I'm a little confused as to why this is in here. What are we attempting to do? I mean, just destroy a non-basic? Yeah, I like Silverback a lot, actually. I'm a fan of Silverback for sure. Yeah, something like this probably. You know what? I might even swap 1 Awaken the Woods for 1 more Silverback. Just because it gives you 1 more way to destroy enchantments, which actually is really good against the domain control decks. And it's another thing at 5 because, you can kind of go to 4 and there's a couple things, and then you're kind of jumping all the way up to 7 after that. So you do want something in that middle space. But yeah, maybe something like this. I don't know. I don't understand the volatile fault. Um, I'd probably, if you really want to play this, just play Blasting Zone, or not Blast Zone, Field of Ruin or Demolition Field. I d- I don't know why we would want to like. You're already playing a ramp deck. The difference between 1 and 2 to blow up a land shouldn't be a big deal for you. So just play the one that also lets you have a mana or have a land, right? Like, why would you not? Why would you want a treasure instead of a land in this deck? I think is the thing I'm confused by. Like, I'm not. Yeah, there's just like a thing here where I'm trying to figure out like why did we choose this over one of those other two that let you replace your basics. I I don't think that's really necessary. Now, I mean, do we need to destroy the creature lands anyway, or are there lands that are going to really bother us? I mean, sure, but even with spelunking, I don't know if this does significantly more. Because again, I'm thinking about like after we use it, if you feel it's necessary to use it, I'd rather have a land there that I could just reuse every time other than a treasure that I'm going to use one time. Like now, if there is a different use case, cool, I'm going to hear it out. But that doesn't make as much sense to me. So yeah, if you really want to play it, I don't I don't even know if this deck actually needs it, honestly. I feel like if we're on the defensive where we're having to blow up a land, we're probably already dead. That now and obviously that's never 100%, but like those scenarios feel like you're already in a bad position, if that makes sense. So I don't even know if that's what I would care to do. I might rather just be like, hey, there's stuff in this deck that needs 2 and 3 green or whatever early. I'd rather just have actually another Boseiju or another forest is probably better than a demolition field. I can't think of any other lands I really want in here, honestly. But here's a different argument. What if we add a couple of creature lands just so you have something to fight with? And I don't know, that might just be the difference of playing like two, I don't know, the thing that makes the mites or whatever, something like that. Or yeah, I'd probably just play something that makes the mites. I was thinking I might try to. There's an argument to be made for Urza's Foundries or whatever, but if you have the mana, just making the mites during their end step is probably going to be fine. So yeah, I don't even know if I'd play Demolition Field. Uh, do, 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 do. Merrick's, there we go. 2 of those. So yeah, this is probably closer to what I would try. So yeah, more Bramble Familiars and Loam Speakers early, so you can more often go from like 2 to 4 to hit the Topiary, or not the Topiary Stomper, the Blossoming Tortoise. But Topiary Stomper's fine. You still have Glimpse the Core to go find lands. I mean, there's just sometimes, sadly, the Topiary Stomper is just not going to do what you want it to do in those early fights. But at least now you have some bodies to throw in the way to buy you time. You still have a couple of Nisses, which are good. Again, Tortoise finds you land, and then all of your big guys are actually significant. Or you could just awaken the woods and then try to go off. So now you have another option there. So yeah, that's probably what I would try. I honestly, the best version of mono, when I'm gonna in quotes mono green that I've had this season, it's just been the version I played like 3 weeks ago. That was mono green splashing black lands. Just you can have the restless cottage to fight with, and that was just good by itself. I think I played like 2 black cards just because I had the lands to do it or whatever at that point. But realistically, that's probably just better. But if you want to go mono green for now, something like this probably works. I do think with the next set, there's cards because there's like the what is it, the Apex Beast thing or whatever to consider, and there's 2 or 3 others that could probably make the cut that are slightly better than things you're playing now. But I think even that's more aggressive than it is a ramp deck. Like this is trying to ramp to play the big things, where I think future versions of Mono Green are probably going to top out at like 5 mana, whatever that thing is, and then just try to overrun the opponents that way. But next on my list, I'm going to double check here. Looks like it was Travis. All right, so let me go hop into the Discord and see what Travis Decker left for us. Looks like a couple more got added. I don't know if we're going to get to them or not, so I'm just going to give you all that notice. But we're adding Moose Thompson and looks like Steve to the list. No guarantees that those will happen, but we will get through what we can. So let's look at this one from Goldfish. We'll export to Arena. We will copy that. And we'll prepare to bring that one in, and we'll see what we can do. What do we got? This is a green and white list. Okay. This green white tokens, I'm gonna tell you, just look at one of the lists I put up this season already. Like, I'm gonna basically change cards, and we're gonna end up close to something I probably already have. I again don't think any of this is bad. I think there's a bunch of ways you can go with tokens, but creature you control enter battle for this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then those creatures fight each other. Fair. I don't even know if Warden of the Inner Sky made a full copy in my list. Yeah, I've actually pulled away from Ellenbach Escort, except for in one list, I think. But yeah, there's definitely some ways you can go. Let me see what I have, because I feel like I'm just going to end up rehashing stuff. Let me pull up one of my lists, because I know I've done this a couple of times this season with +1/+1 tokens or counters. Oh, we went a couple of different ways, actually, because we had the counters that had the Sovereign Okinic was in there. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we had several. I just got to pick one, I guess. Let me see if I have one that's just Selesnya colors already. We can go there. That's Selesnya tokens. That's not the same thing. Man, we actually did quite a few token builds this season. I tried to do some different ones so people had options. Oh yeah, because we did one with backup, which was good too. I forgot about that one, because we wanted to play the Angel. Yeah, with Okinic. This one might be the one, if I were going to play again, to go with that, because I don't think the format's changed enough to want to make it different. All right, let me bring this one up. Have to go get the deck list from the site. But yeah, I think this might be the one to go with here. This is why we keep all this stuff cataloged, so we can always go back and get it. Let's export, copy. All right, so I'll bring this up. Unfortunately, Arena, I can't really split screen, because it would be kind of nice to have these back to back next to each other while we talk about them. But all right, this is what my list ended up being as the final. Though this could be the other 01 that comes in with backup if you wanted to do that. Totally reasonable. What I liked about this list is just more consistent size. Ended up just being able to almost always have like 4/4+ Beast Callers, always had huge Botanical Brawlers. Siege Veteran was pumping stuff. Bloated Contaminator was a threat by itself. Do I have a regular streaming schedule? No, I do not. I opted to give up a regular streaming schedule a long time ago. Mostly because I wanted to dedicate more to YouTube videos, and then I just stream whenever it's convenient or it fits in my schedule. Kutzel, I also thought was very big, because this one made it where our spells couldn't be countered, but also allowed us to draw cards, which is pretty consistent. Here's the thing, Sergio. I don't think those are bad cards. One, I already mentioned the Bond Warden. You can play it over Apprentice or not, your choice. Sometimes I like Apprentice just because of color considerations. Otherwise, it's kind of the same card in a lot of ways. But Doomscar Warrior, yes, no, depends on where you're going to cut, right? Because one of the things that comes up a lot in YouTube comments constantly is people going, "Oh, you should play this card, you should play this card." And I want to ask, but I never do because it'd be rude. But my first question is, okay, cool. What do you want to cut? Right? If these lists are already tight, hell, some of them are so tight, I'm being greedy and squeezing in a 61st card. Like, what do you cut? Right? Because I don't, and again, I don't think Doomscar Warrior is bad, but I mean, we play it over Sovereign, possibly, right? Like, that's kind of the only spot really cut because I don't want to cut it over the Wandering Emperor because that card's still good as some of the very little removal in the deck, and it still works for the control matchups where you're trying to buy time and rebuild. So I don't want to cut that. Like Bloated Contaminator, maybe, but even then, you're trading a 3 mana for a 4 mana. So you're kind of solving one problem and causing another. Not saying that it's a bad card, totally worth playing, but you always have to ask yourself that first is when you see a card you want to add to a list, always ask yourself, okay, cool, what am I taking out? Because comparatively, even you see in the 1-drop slots, it's Hopeful Initiates, Warden of the Sky, Iron Apprentice in this list, and that's only 8 copies, right? So if we look at the list that Travis submitted, and not that this is wrong, just as an example, like he went with a different choice of 1 mana things, right? And he chose to play these 11. I didn't even give Olenbach Escort any consideration because I wanted the thing that died and can move counters because putting counters on things is more important for me, right? He chose to play a fight spell instead of playing Wandering Emperor and using this as his choice of removal. Reasonable, right? So maybe this list makes better use of playing something like the Doomscar Warrior. So, and don't think either is wrong by far. Right? He's been playing Get Lost in this list, which is totally understandable. Great cards, nothing wrong with the cards at all. But I just think whichever way you go kind of dictates what those other cards should be. Because Kadama's a good card. Gives stuff trample, which can be pretty significant. I opted out of it because I wanted the maximum number of things that either made counters or move counters, right? So the other version was just different. It's probably why I wouldn't play Sentinel of Nameless Race or Nameless City, is because while it's good, it's taking time to make those counters. Whereas, like, I'd rather just play something else. Now, that said, I did play a version this season that, and maybe I still have it in my deck pool. Was it Naya Colors? I think it was this thing, I think. Yeah, this one. Which you could replace Anim Pakal, but because I was playing Botanical Brawler, then I did want Sentinel of the Nameless City because now every artifact is an additional +1/+1 counter somewhere. And also triggers like Teething Wormlet and whatever, right? So then you start this whole chain of effects of things going off. So you kind of have to figure all that, you know. How about adding Glorious Sunrise to give the boost squad trample? Not really. Glorious Sunrise almost never makes the cut in my list just because it's too slow. And the problem with Sunrise is that if they sweep your board or they deal with one or two of your creatures, you're just like, okay, I guess I'll try to gain some life or something or whatever, right? It's just not doing anything unless you already have a significant board. If you don't, it always feels like you're not getting the thing you want. So at that point, I'd rather just play a Planeswalker or some other thing that draws me cards or whatever. Just something that I'm guaranteed to get the thing I want more often, right? That's where your consistency comes from. But yeah, skipping back to the initial list. The only thing, like I said, I would change here, realistically, I don't think anything's what I would say wrong with this list. Only concerns I would have is there's not much of anything on the upper end. And knowing that so many decks are playing stuff like the destroy all creatures 2 or less or whatever thing is an issue. So I would be a little concerned about that, though this does give stuff indestructible. So there's that. So that could help solve that problem somewhat. And I would just cut probably Sentinel and Nameless Race for a pile of other things. Whether you want to play the 4 for 3 that we're talking about with Toxic or whatever that was in the other list, whether you want to play Doomscar Warrior, Wandering Emperor, like there's a whole selection of stuff I would play. I think Sentinel and Nameless City, while nice, is probably a touch slow for what this deck is trying to do. Because you almost want every card to be generating value, adding counters, getting bigger, like because you don't have a lot of time to take time off with this type of deck. Like even playing these little creatures early, you're okay. Well, you want more things on the board so you can tap things to the warden to get the counter, right? Or something to take advantage of escort because escort by itself isn't really doing anything, right? It needs other things with +1/+1 counters. You need other big creatures out so you can take advantage of the hopeful initiate, right? Sentinel Nameless Race or name. I keep saying Nameless Race because that's another card, but not something that I'm super big on. Boombringer Valkyrie. It's not a bad card. I played it in the list earlier this season. We were talking about that a while ago. I think it can work. Don't know if this is the list for it or not. I would also probably cut back one Iganjo and one Beseiju because this list doesn't really have but one legend anyway. So it's not like we're going to be using this on the cheap very often. And you want to make sure you don't miss land drops. Just because, again, this deck is built on got to hit your stuff, got to get stuff out early, get the consistent build. Little concerning now that I'm thinking about it with Dusk Legion Duelists because we don't have that many ways to add counters to this. Right? You have Ozolith, technically Agatha's Soul Cauldron, assuming some creatures are in the graveyard. And then maybe not with a map. Right? I'm not sure. Yeah, I think if you're going to do this, then I would cut Sentinel the Nameless City for Doomscar Warriors to make sure I have another way to put counters on things. Is probably what I would do. But other than that, that's it. What's the worst thing to ever happen to MTG and why is it toxic? It's definitely not toxic. It's the players. Like, easy answer. Fans are the best and the worst thing to happen to every single property on the planet. And I don't think it's close. All right. Let's hop in and take a look at who was next on the list. Sure. Lazy Chicken. Got a list over on Moxfield. We'll pull that up. I don't think that the players are necessarily toxic. I think they have problems for other issues. For example, one of the sayings that's been a thing for many, many years and can apply to many card gamers, not just Magic, is that you could put $100 bills in the booster packs and players would complain about how they're folded. And then you have players get mad that you made that statement. It was like, yep, absolutely true. Yeah, I don't read sarcasm online. Like, not to be rude, I just assume you put words on there. I'm reading the words as they are. There's too many people in a communication form like this to try to figure out sarcasm. You see me in the game really well. To me as a newbie, how long have you played? Honestly, almost the life of the game. That's why I laugh when people tell me I know nothing about the game or the industry or whatever. I literally have worked on the business side of the industry in almost everything but distribution. Even working for the manufacturer of the game. So I just laugh at that stuff all the time. The reality is, and here's the thing, and that's why I tell people like expect mistakes in my videos, whatever, because I'm not caring about that. Like my goal with this channel or channels, depending on where you're watching me, is to try different ideas, showcase different cards, have something fun and entertaining. I don't care that I'm making mistakes. I expect I'm going to make mistakes. Hell, even right now while talking to you guys, sometimes I'm missing cards to name them or whatever. But I also have literally, if y'all can see my screen, I think I have, no exaggeration, like 50 tabs open in Chrome. I've got Arena open. I've got OBS open. I have another window so I can monitor the Discord when people are posting stuff, right? All that's going on. That also happens while I'm recording. But while I'm recording, I'm also responding to people sending me messages, and sometimes I'm helping people out with stuff or whatever. So like, I don't even give myself a chance to play perfectly. It's not even in my consideration. Now, if I was playing a tournament or whatever, I'd turn everything off. I'd turn, make sure there's no distractions because I have something there invested and the winning matters, right? But if I'm not, then who cares? Like at the end of the day, does this weird idea work? Right? That's the goal. That's the project. Especially when I'm building stuff with like cards I never play with or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes. When you're seeing maybe not the first one or two, but let's say out of 10 games, you're seeing the first 7 or 8 that I played with it. Right? That's going to happen. I don't care. That's why most of the time I just either ignore those comments or just delete them because they're not contributing anything. Have I played tournaments before? Yes. I've played on the Pro Tour a couple times, Nationals once, and a bunch of there's still Star City things where I cache those that are still logged on the internet you can find. Also, all happen to be standard format. Started with the Xbox Live arcade games. Oh, back when it was like Duel of the Planeswalkers, I think is what that was. It turns out humans make mistakes. Oh yeah, I make tons of mistakes. Magic the Gathering is problem solving. That's one way to look at it. Yeah, that's not an unrealistic view. I'm also fairly new, and the first thing I learned when interacting with Magic is to tune out the drama. Luckily, my LJS is awesome. Yeah, I think it's gamers. Truthfully, I think the average gamer. Actually, okay. There's two things I think that people don't maybe three things. One, the average gamer is way worse than they think they are. Just the way it is. Like the number of players that go compete in PTQ or I guess RCQs or whatever, cash tournaments, whatever, that think they're better than they are and better prepared than they are, monumental. Same thing can be said of poker for the most part, but generally, a lot of players that are competing are worse than they think they are. The other is that you don't have to be a top level player to be a good creator. And I would honestly argue that some of the best players at their games are bad creators because they're not personalities. They can't explain themselves well. They don't present their ideas greatly. They are good because they dedicate their time and their thought energy to being strategically good at the thing they do. They're not perfecting how to speak to an audience. They're not working on making better thumbnails. They're not doing all that other stuff, right? That's not their expertise. I think that's just a really big thing that people ignore, and don't realize. The third, and I've mentioned this recently in comments, is that I think more people would learn by watching more experiments and watching more decks fail than they would by watching players play decks that are winning. Because it's just like life, right? When things are going well, then you're not learning as much. Right? Think about everything you know. You know because you failed at a thing and you had to learn how to do it. Right? You didn't know how to tie your shoes, but then a bunch of you probably watched Sesame Street and they taught you the 2 loops and the over, the under, whatever, and then eventually knew how to tie your shoes. Right? But if you just did, or somebody showed you one time you did it, you'd only know the one way and you would have never figured anything else out. And this is just the way it always is. Right? I think when you watch people who fail or struggle or make mistakes, you see all the ways to not do things. You see all the combinations of stuff that don't actually work. So it saves you time to not have to go through that same level of experimentation because somebody else already did it. You know what I mean? So like just one of those things. Let's see. I like your content, especially when you're explaining your thought process and planning for the future turns. Yeah, and some people hate that. As funny as it is. But I get it, right? Some people I just want to see a deck win or lose and that's it. But the reality is, even if you see me go 0-5 or 5-0 with the deck, the next set of 5 could be totally different, right? Your first 5 could be completely different. Even within a thread of comments on a video, you'll see a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I finally got to platinum or mythic, or whatever, playing this deck. It's awesome, whatever." And then you'll see somebody else comment like, "This deck sucks. I played 10 games and only won 1. This is garbage. I don't know how you beat anything." That's just the way it is. Right? Like I don't gain anything from lying to you, right? And even in my videos, if I do it like one of the recent ones, I think I had a long game against Control where I lost, and another one against Mono Black Belts. I just put a note at the end or told you at the end. I can't remember which. Just saying like, hey, this also happened, just so y'all know, right? But I didn't show them because I didn't want you to have to watch an hour and a half video where one of the games is a 25-minute slog of nothing practically happening, because that's bad entertainment. But I at least told you that, hey, if you decide to play this, be aware that this is a real possibility. You do with that information what you want. If somebody only watches 2 games and then they choose not to watch the rest of the video, well, that's on them. I gave you all the information. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not hiding anything from you. Uh, let's see. From earlier, point 2 is especially true for streaming, and people keep not understanding that. Oh, absolutely. Like, the thing is, the best people, look at the people who get the most views from either streaming or YouTubing. It is not the top players. Hell, I just saw, and I'm not going to call names, but I saw a top player just yesterday pop up on my YouTube stuff, and I went to look at his YouTube channel. He doesn't even have that many subscribers, nor does he get that many views. And he's one of the top level players in the game all time. So if I wanted to know about strategy or whatever, I would totally be following him and watching him play. But I also know it's probably going to be a bit dry because that's what he's presenting. Same thing if I'm trying to be better at chess and I go watch one of the grandmasters of chess. I don't expect them to be entertaining. I would go watch because I want the dry, bare bones strategy, right? It's research, it's work. That's why I'm there. Most of you are watching YouTube or Twitch or whatever because you want to be entertained. And then the strategy is secondary, right? If you happen to see something fun or a deck that looks good, you might go build it, and that's a reward. But you're having fun just hanging out, right? It's entertaining. It's give you something to do with your time. You have a Grixis rebound deck. I hope I can look at sometime. Maybe if we get to it. Failing makes you understand things how and why. Succeeding without failing teaches you a pattern repeat. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it, Paul. Exactly that. Right? When things are good, you're just doing things that you know work. But when you fail, you'll learn the processes of how to get through a thing. I bettered a lot watching CGB playing mono red. Before that, I didn't hold my cards and always, yeah, that's a thing too. Sometimes it's just little things you take away. The other thing too, different creators are going to have different specialties, right? Like in this day and age, if I wanted to be better at control, I'd probably watch somebody like CGB, because he plays more control decks. So he's going to play them better than I will. Or maybe Sonio or somebody who builds a lot of control decks, right? If you wanted to play better graveyard decks, you probably watch somebody like Swayze or something. You want to play a bunch of +1/+1 counter or token decks, you probably watch me or whatever, right? Like there's going to be different things because each of us have our preferences or things we're just better at. And that's fine too. You kind of know what you're getting. You love brewing decks and finding out if they work or not. True. Here's another thing too that I want to put to rest. When people say like, "Oh, this cat can't be done. You can't mythic with this, that, and the other." Not true. Understand that I've been at Mythic for a week or so now, with still several days to go this month. And that's with me wasting rank. Like I literally kill rank on the regular, testing out all kinds of weird, bad ideas that y'all will never see. Actually, maybe never. I might add some of those to the tier 2 videos on YouTube at some point for YouTube members. But as of now, most of those never see the light of day. They're just crazy ideas I'm trying that just don't work. Even doing that multiple times a week, I was still able to make Mythic with the decks y'all did see. So that means the decks I'm showing you made up all the ground multiple times. Because sometimes I'll get to like level 1 in Platinum, and then I'll drive it all the way down to Platinum 3 because I was testing decks for 3 hours and did nothing, right? They made up all that ground multiple times and still got to Mythic. So you don't have to only play the top end decks, right? Ladder on Arena is not the same as tournament play. Just not, right? We have enough proof of it. We have enough creators doing exactly what I'm doing. It's a thing. Like, it's just a real fact. Shuffler determines a lot of my games. I don't think it determines as many as you think it does. I honestly think, like, here's the other thing too. The only way I can explain this, if you're a poker player that used to play a lot of digital poker, you would understand this. But when I was playing online poker, I would play 8 or 10 tables depending on the service I was using. you can play a certain level of strategy because you're going to see so many hands that you can almost play the numbers because you know the EV is going to work out enough because you're going to see enough hands, right? If I go to a live poker table and I'm seeing 1/16 as many hands, not even 1/8 as many because it's slower live than it is online. So we'll call it 1/16 as many hands per hour. Sometimes you make plays or take chances or things you wouldn't otherwise do because you're just not going to see as many. I see as many hands. I bring that up because if I play in paper, sometimes it's going to feel different because I played one tournament where I only had 5 rounds. Maybe I played 12 or 13 games across those 5 rounds, and that's it. Right. So the averages look different to you because that looks normal. But if you're somebody like me who's literally played for 30 plus years at this point, 30 years, I guess, at this point, you've seen even crazier things happen in paper than have even happened on Arena. Now, sometimes will you just draw too many lands, or yeah, had it happen in today's video that went up. I just had a game where I think I drew one spell and the rest were all lands in the course of the game. Yeah, you're not going to win those. But realistically, it's not costing you as many. What's honestly mulliganing better, like not overvaluing hands or whatever, like sequencing of cards, like being able to predict your opponent's next play based on the metagame or the cards they've played or whatever. Right? All of those things are contributing as well. But then when you get to the end of the game, it looks like, I just drew a land at the end. I guess I lost. Right. Same way people go, my opponent top decked the thing. But if you go back and look, like, well, could I have blocked one more time? Could have I gotten one more point here? Maybe I shouldn't have attacked with one more creature on like that 5th turn, and maybe I could have blocked. Right? All those things affect the outcome at the end. So while I do say, yes, randomness is going to hit you sometimes because we play a card game, it doesn't hit us as much as people think it does. And there's still people, it's like, Arena's rigged and they're trying to get you to spend more money and you can't win unless you're spending money. Literally, this set is one of the sets I have spent the least on. And yet I still mythicked fairly quickly while playing all this other wild stuff. So that's just simply not true. I feel like the difference is knowing not to do something versus understanding why not to do something. But first is good, second, but the second can help you. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like the understanding is what you get from watching all the failures. Well, right now, Lord Sinister, we are not posting any more decks. I'm gonna see if I get through what's there first, and I'll do another round of callouts. I like watching content creators because I see them using cards that might change my view on a card. I've played since '95, and there's some cards that stand out to me when no one else sees it. That's fair, right? Sometimes you may still see stuff that other people don't see. Josh says, just got to your content. Love the way you read the lines in a situation. Thank you. Sometimes I'm not right, but that's the other thing I also try to explain to people. Even when I'm wrong, at least you get to see and understand why I'm wrong, right? If I tell you, okay, I'm making this play because I'm anticipating this thing happening. And I've even vocally said like, well, that didn't go the way we wanted. Or, I wasn't expecting my opponent to play that card or whatever, right? But at least you get an understanding of why I did something. Even if it's stupid logic. Sometimes my logic's just wrong. But at least you go, okay, well, I see why that happened. I wouldn't have done that. As a viewer, you might think that and be like, hey, and you might be right, honestly. But at least you get that level of understanding. And that's my point of presenting my content the way I do, is so you at least have that other layer. Whether I'm right or wrong, you get some other perspective toward a situation. Roomatone's a good example. I started using it from the start because I saw it being really powerful. Gradually, more and more people found the value. Yeah, that's true. PowrDragn made me say how much Arlen is. But here's the thing with Arlen, right? There was a point where Arlen wasn't good because there was so much Azoria soldiers, mono white humans, mono red aggro. And in those cases, Arlen's not good. But as the format started shifting and we started seeing more of these mono black mid range, which got like some extra removal, the Azorius control decks, all those things started popping up a little more. All of a sudden, that card we pushed aside starts looking real nice, right? Because now it starts filling some of those problems that we had before. So, and I think I discussed this in comments with somebody said, see, you told me Arlen was crap or blah. It's like, no, I wasn't saying Arlen was bad. Just like I didn't think it was the card we should be playing at the time. And I still believe that. But I think now, as people have discovered more things and the format has shifted a bit, Arlen's a very playable card. It's a better 4-mana choice, I think, than a lot of cards people put in lists currently because it helps solve a lot of problems. So even that can be where it's not even that somebody doesn't like a card or doesn't believe a card's decent, just you need a shift in the format to make stuff better. Sometimes you're too cautious on plays. Yeah, but I'll also say this. Some of that's from personal experience of being burned on those plays or being rewarded by being more conservative. And even then, it's can I be conservative without giving away the game, right? And that's where my decisions come from a lot. Is all right. If I only go this far, what ways does this go bad for me? What ways does this go good for me? And some of it's just I can quickly think of more ways it goes bad than good. So this is all I'm going to do, right? If I can think of more ways it goes good than bad, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll make this other play. But it's all personal perspective for sure. Okay, Scoop, you're just gonna have to wait. We already have a queue of decks. We've just been having a chat with the people in chat today. So, but yes, we will get to more decks. But right now, we have a deck on screen that I've had up for about 10 minutes, so we should address this person's deck. This is from who was it Lazy something who put this up in the Discord, right? Who was that? Lazy Chicken. That's who submitted this one. All right, so what do we got? We have 2 Lunarch Veteran, 3 Skrelv, 3 Pollen Shield Hair, 3 Resolute Reinforcements, 4 Gallagrators. 2. Okay, so this is just a tokens list. Oh man, we're trying to do a lot. We're trying to do a lot. Man, I don't want to cop out and say just like look at my channel for other lists with Naya colors with tokens. I think I've made 3 different versions of this. The biggest problem I have with this is just it's probably going to lack some consistency. Because one, Devilish Valet, it's a trap card. Like sometimes it will hit and it's going to look really cool when you get to do the thing, right? Like if you get Devilish Valet and you're attacking the turn after you have an Anima call with like 3 counters on it or something, it's going to be super sweet, right? Because you're going to play the Devilish Valet, you're going to attack, Anima call is going to make like 4 tokens and it's going to trigger 4 times. Like it's really cool. But pretty much the rest of the time, you're like, okay, great. I'm attacking with this 2/3 or this 4/3, and it's just not great, right? More often than not, I'd rather just have more wedding announcements or more Adelines or whatever. I like it's a neat card, it's fun, but you're gonna win more often with pretty much every other card in this deck than you are with Devilish Valet. Like if there's a simple way to put it. Like it's fun. Don't be wrong. I've built a couple of decks just to do it and show that what it can do potentially, but it almost feels like you have to set up the scenarios to make it good. Whereas all the other cards in this list are just doing something the whole time, right? I say that Pollen Shield Hair. Well, even Pollen Shield Hair is pumping up your tokens, right? So everything else. Hey, Jay White, like everything else is doing something all the time, whereas Devilish Valet is kind of like waiting for like, hey, set me up, make a couple tokens. And realistically, I would also say in this list, if you don't have Adam Pakal or Mondrak, you're not even really making a lot of tokens. Right? I mean, because Rabble Rousing costs 5 or whatever. So you really are playing that well after the Devilish Valet. So like, Pawn Shield also works with the adventure side of this deck. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a tokens list right now with Pollen Shield here that I have scheduled for this week. So like totally doable. But yeah, I would cut the valets, just play more wedding announcements. I'm 50-50 on forges. I do like the fact that obviously they survive sweepers and all that. So if you think that's going to be a problem for you, keep them in. If you don't, lean more and more like Lunarch veterans, more reinforcement, whatever. But yeah, there's really not a lot to change other than this. Like I said, I think there's different ways you can go and different numbers of things you can min max if you want to. But I already have a bunch of different tokens lists. Best list is the one where O'Hare Talk was cut in favor of Jetmir. Yeah, I mean, O'Hare Talk's a cool card, but it does cost 6. You know, that's ultimately it. And it stops it from really doing what you want it to do. I don't think it's terrible, but it costs 6, and that 6 cost is really a big deal, especially in decks like this where you could just have more quality stuff regularly. So yeah, that those would probably be the only real change, like immediate changes, is the wedding announcement. But I would definitely say go back to my channel, look at the Naya list that are up with tokens, get a feel for some of the interactions, and that might help you decide which way you want to go and what you want to play. Because there's even arguments to be made for a couple of planeswalkers as well if you want to do that, and those do a lot too. Usually on rabble rousing, I'm not often playing more than one anyway, because a lot of time, like, don't get me wrong, sometimes you can't just win because you play a rabble rousing, right? You're attacking with 6 things, they block a couple of them, but you're making 6 more, so you don't really care, and eventually you just overrun them, right? That is a real thing, but that doesn't happen all that often. Usually, excuse me. Usually, you're hoping to get like a Jetmir from out from under it, right? But you're only playing 2 rabble rousing, 2 Jetmir anyway. So I just cut down to 1 rabble rousing just for the gamble, if you get it, and maybe up a wedding announcement or something. Am I planning to do a set review for MKM? We already did the first week's worth or whatever last week. So if anything, I might just do one follow up, but that's probably all I'm going to do for it. I don't usually do full big set reviews often unless we just do some stuff over a stream. Let's see. At F&M last night, I would have won off of rabble rousing, but my opponent top decked the Sunfall. Well, and that's part of the problem, right? Like when you have no creatures, rabble rousing doesn't do anything. Yeah, it was a live stream video from like a week ago, I think is when we did that. But yeah, the video's still up. You can definitely go watch it. But yeah, otherwise, like I said, I would check out just some of my other videos on this. There's a lot of ways to go. I don't think any of them are bad. It's just pick your personal preference for the most part. Okay, so that brings us to, was it Moose Trooper? Is that who was next in there? Moose Thompson. I can't read my own notes. Look at that. But this is also on Moxfield. And we will go and export that. Let's see what we got. Moose Trooper is a better name. Sorry, I was just one of those things. I need to delete some decks. I'm just realizing that. So let's delete these so I can make some room. I'm back to 100 already. Man, I hit the 100. Like I always delete like 15, 20 decks at a time, and I still hit the 100 mark like 4 times every season. It's crazy. Making too many decks out here. All right. So what do we got? We got Spyglass Siren, Freebooter, Malcolm. So we're doing some piratey things. Tideblade, sure. Dragon Spark Reactor, Captain Storm. All right. This is an idea. Dollhouse. I hate it. Like this honestly, I can't endorse Dollhouse. I can't do it. I can't do it. I y'all saw the video this week. I have just the worst luck with that card. Like even where I'm just like, oh, I just need to draw one of these like 8 cards for like 4 turns. It just doesn't happen. Or I'm like, oh, I got everything set up. I just need a Dollhouse, and I just don't draw one. Or like I get everything set up, I get the Dollhouse, and like wipe your graveyard. I'm just like, never hits for me, right? It's just, and then the times I do win, it feels like, well, I probably could have won, almost won this without the Dollhouse even. I will say this though, even if you like Dollhouse, I don't think this is a Dollhouse deck. Like I don't really know what we're even trying to do with it in here, truthfully. Here's the thing about the Tithing Blade that sort of bothers me is that, yeah, your opponent has to discard a card or sacrifice a creature, I mean, but like, when are you wanting to do this? Right? This deck obviously wants to be playing something on 1, probably even playing something on 2. might even be just your Captain Storm to start setting up things on 3. So by the time you Tithing Blade, you may not even get the thing you want to kill with this, right? You know what I mean? Like if you play this on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, like they're probably not sacrificing the thing you want them to anyway. I would rather this just be a real removal card if given a choice. Cuz like we're not even going to want to flip it that often, right? Because the treasures we're getting are creature. I mean, it's an artifact uh, for Dragon Spark Reactor, I guess. Yeah, still, I don't know. I still don't think that's the way I want to go. I would rather this just be a real removal card, whether it's the new one where you have sacrifice or discard a card to pay 3 life, like that thing. Uh, go for the throat, whatever. I would just rather just be a real removal. Is step one. That's where I would start at. Make these into something. Maybe it's Bitter Triumph so we can still kill planeswalkers or something. But this is just top of head thinking here. Britches is good. Honestly, are we really doing that much with Dragon Spark Reactor? I mean, I kind of get it. So I don't hate it. But at the same time, like it's going to be very slow for this type of deck. Like because here's the thing. If our deck is doing what we want it to do, right? We got Captain Storm, we got Britches, we're attacking, we're connecting, we're making some treasure, whatever. Like, aren't they just dead before we even really want to blow up the Dragon Spark Reactor? Like, at least that's the way it feels. Like, because Dragon Spark Reactor's only really working in this deck if we're kind of cooking and doing everything else we want to do, right? But if we're doing that, that seems like we kind of just won anyway. So why not play something like Schooners or Larcenist or whatever that are just better in more scenarios ahead of this? I think would probably what I would go to. So I go Schooners, at least 3, and then Larcenist. Because Larcenist can be pseudo removal and turn something off. And then like Surge Injure is cool, but I don't think we really need it in this list. And you added another pirate to the deck that works with Britches and whatever. And then you're already going to be able to draw cards from the extra treasure with Professional. And Larcenist is a human as well. So you can, I guess you're calling pirate, but I guess you could call it human because this is a human. Oh, not really. You probably need to call it pirate because this thing's randomly not a human, as is Malcolm, right? Yeah, Malcolm's also a siren. So yeah, you probably just call pirate more often than not, and then you're only not triggering the Professional. But yeah, this probably is better. And then you're still able to get cards off of Exploring, off of the Staunch Crewmate, possibly off the Professional. Only really needs 2 Zoetic Glyph, but I can respect that because we are going to have like a treasure to put it on or something more often than not. So like, yeah, this is probably just more consistently better. So yeah, I'm probably into this with the flyers and everything else and Schooner. I mean, it lacks. I think trying to get cute with the Professional does leave you where you don't have a lot of removal or a lot of power for your team. Like that is one thing, but other than that, yeah, this seems fine. Like all of these cards seem like they can do stuff. Usually on the turns you draw them or whatever, so that should be fine. Nope, Duplimancy's on my do not call list. Duplimancy's like if Duplimancy called me on my phone, it would show up as possible spam. Like that's where I'm at with Duplimancy. The analogy I gave on the last video, I think, was that it doesn't even get to live in the doghouse. I have a space next to the doghouse that just has like a plank of wood over the top to block the rain. and it gets to hang out there with Dollhouse. That's where they live. So that's where I'm at as far where those are concerned. All right. So then, Steve, you were the next up. I don't know if I'm gonna get to any more after Steve, but we'll see. Do 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 do. Also on Moxfield, much appreciated. All right, let's see what we got. Do 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 do. Mono white, bunch of white cards, a bunch of artifacts, exiling stuff with the Ducks Rose, market gnomes, getting you some cards in life, clay fired bricks, foundries, Tinker Tote. I don't remember what this is. In the battlefield, you create 2 gnomes. You can sacrifice it to gain 3. I mean, I guess so. Like, I don't know what to think of that. I'm just like, it's a card. All right. Uh, so is this like a gnome deck? Is that what we're trying? I mean, I don't think I like this card regardless, but I mean, it's obvious. This is obvious. Jamil, sure. Threefold Thunderhawk. All right. Yeah. Wow. Where to start with this one? I'm probably going to for Fabrication Foundry first off, because you might as well, if you're going to ramp, you might as well ramp up, give yourself a chance to play like turn 2,000 Moon Smithies or turn 3,000 Moon Smithies or something. Um, yeah, I'm not feeling this thing for 4 mana. Like, don't be wrong. I mean, you're making a 1/1 and a 3/2 flyer, so like cost wise, it seems like it should be all right. But this just doesn't feel like it does anything. Like, there's got to be something better this deck can play. Like any of the planeswalkers you can play are better than this, realistically. Especially since you're already playing some sweepers and whatnot. Um, could also play other artifacts, probably that make some kind of mana to make it easier for your Thunderhulks potentially. But yeah, I want something other than those. You might as well up the saw blades. Like, I'm trying to think like why we're like, because like Tinker's Totes, I'd cut those down, maybe even out. I'd play another saw blade. I mean, there's so much removal already in here, though, right? Because you have Dust Rose Reliquary, you've got Saw Blades, you've got Seal from Existence, you've got Unstable Glyph Bridge. Like, we're kind of hoping to just win off of Thousand Moon Smithy, right? Is that really where we're at with this? I mean, yes, we have Thunder Hulk or whatever, but that costs 7, and there's one of. We may or may not get the Thunder Hulk, but it feels like this deck is just kind of like all in on Smithy and turn Smithy into the barracks, right? And then maybe hmm, trying to think about how I would go about this. Because what's weird is I almost want to cut down one of each of these to play more Field of Ruins because you might need to defensively use Field of Ruins to kill their Field of Ruins or Demolition Fields to clear the path so you can actually have the Thousand Moon Smithies barrack survive. You know, I think. At least that's what it feels like. So I'd almost rather do that to give you more shots at it. Weird. Do I not have Field of Ruin? Oh, it's probably because it's a different version. Um, still have space for another card. Like honestly, I'd probably just play a couple of planeswalkers in here. Or even one of each where you cut the totes and play the big and small Wandering Emperor and the 4 mana Elspeth or something. Those are all useful and do what this deck's trying to do. But otherwise, this is just it's a mono white control deck with artifacts. You know, I think that's what we're doing here. So like one, and then yeah, I think Field of Ruins are more beneficial to you even than these are. Truthfully, there's just a lot of uses this deck's going to get out of Field of Ruin, I think. But yeah, otherwise, like, there's not much else I would change here. I mean, this is kind of it. It does exactly what you think it does. Like, go search for lands, play Fabrication Foundries, try to control the board, exile a few things, start making big gnomes with Thousand Moon Smithy. Sweep the board in case of emergency. That's kind of what this deck is. This was kind, and this isn't an insult to you at all, so please don't take it that way. But this was like the least interesting one to do because it was kind of just straightforward. It's just like this is just a different mono white control, right? Like it's not much different. It's just another control deck doing it from the artifact side instead of the spell side. Is not much to change, good or bad. It's neither. Honestly, it's just some decks are what they are, right? You some decks have a lot of room and flexibility, like we talked about with the tokens list, right? There's a bunch of different ways you can build those. So some of it becomes personal preference over what the player wants to play versus what the creator wants to play. In some the case of something like this, there's kind of only one way to go, right? So we're just going to maximize getting mana, searching our lands, and then just playing something that takes advantage of an empty board or a defensive board. And that's kind of it. There's really not too much. Like I get the idea of like, oh, I want to make a bunch of gnomes, but realistically, you're probably going to be sweeping the board and doing all this other stuff that like having those gnomes doesn't really matter all that much. And half your artifacts you can turn into creatures anyway. So it's fine. And Chamil's just cute in something like this. Yep. All right. What do we got next? That was the last one we had from the first round. What do we have? Say 440. Y'all, Royal Rumble comes on in 19 minutes. And I still have to record content for y'all. Am I gonna do one more? Why not? Let's do one more. Just know that I love y'all. Y'all need wherever you are watching this, y'all should like the video, follow, whatever. At least give me that. Give me the thumbs up, whatever. Help me out. I'm giving y'all bonus time. Subscribe if you're on Twitch. Give me some super thanks if you're on YouTube. You know. All right. Let's see what we got here. What's the next one up? Okay. More artifacts and Surge Engine and Tinker's Totes and Circuit Mender and Thousand Moon Smithy. And then ETBs get okay. Wow. Oh boy. There's a lot going on here. I have a lot of questions. I have so many questions. I don't even remember what Oaken Siren is. What is this? This mana only to cast artifact spell or to activate the ability. I mean, all right. I guess this is fine. Master Guide Mural. Master Guide Mural. In the battlefield, create a 4/4 blue and white thing. And you can flip it, and then you tap it, create a 4/4. Activate only if this or another artifact are in the battlefield under your control this turn. Okay. I feel like this deck is trying to do two different things. Like, we have negates. I mean, I guess these are kind of like your removal options. I guess my issue is question one, why are we not playing a maximum amount of Thousand Moon Smithy? That's kind of the first thing. Does this deck really want Unstable Glyph Bridge? Because your goal appears to be to like make piles of little things because you're playing like Tinker's Toe. Like, I don't, and then there's a random Surge Engine. Yeah, I don't this is one of those ones where I just have to say, like, I don't know what the focus is. So I can't really give advice without just changing the deck entirely. Because I get, like, even wanting to play Elish Norn and then having stuff that has extra ETBs, which works with, like, Glass Casket and all that. So, like, it's not bad, but there's also just one Elish Norn. So I'm like, is that a real thing the deck's trying to do? Like, are we trying to win with, like, some combination of Masterwork Mural and Thousand Moon Smithy? Like, I don't. Yeah, this is one where I almost have to say, like, come back, tell me what would like. There's a lot going on here, and I don't know. Like, there's some random one ofs that I don't know how important they are to the deck. I need a lot of context to figure. And again, if everything's artifacts or mostly artifacts, why are we not maxing out like Glasscast or not Glass, but Foundry, right? We should be trying to play all this stuff a little easier. Um, I mean, it's interesting. It feels like the type of thing I could build something with. I don't know if I'd play Citizen's Crowbar, maybe, but it's also interesting because like stuff like Crowbar kind of sort of wants to be aggressive. I mean, you're getting to play a thing, make a token, and then you can blow it up to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So that's kind of cool. But White already has like better stuff to destroy artifacts and enchantments. So you just play those, or you can play more versatile stuff like Get Lost. So I don't even know if you need this. And just making a 1/1 isn't great. I mean, I guess if you have Elish Norn, you make two. But again, we only have one Elish Norn. So like, yeah, I guess that's my issue. This is one where like I would have to put a lot of yeah, and then O'Hare talk. I didn't realize that's just hanging out here at the bottom too, on top of everything else. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And again, another appearance of Tinker's Tote, but I don't even know if we like. I get it. We're making two blockers. If we have Elish Norm, we have four blockers. But again, there's one Elish Norm, there's one O'Hare talk. Like, so we're kind of back to that whole argument. Um, yeah, I don't know. Boy. And then I've even questioned like if we're going to try to make tokens with like Tinkerstotes and things, do we play other small things to make tokens and then just cut the Oaken Sirens because it only works for artifacts and we still want to cast some non-artifact things and ramp up? Like, could we switch this to protect the negotiators and then take advantage of having more tokens? Then we can just counter anything that's a problem, not just non-creature spells. So like, yeah, there's a lot here. Yeah, I think that's reasonable, to say that Masterwork Mural's slow, because kinda is. But, again, I could see a deck where we build around that, and we have that and Thousand Moon Smithy be our win conditions, right? Some combination of those. Or again, if we're playing multiple Elish Norns, then Elish Norn come down, then we play Masterwork Mural, we get two things. So, like, I could see some ways we could make it work. But as it is, I feel like we're trying to do a lot, and I think this is a case of we're trying to do a lot, and I don't like if somebody at least asks me, looking at this and says, "What does this deck do well?" I don't know what that answer is because I mean, I guess it removes stuff, okay, right? Glass caskets. Well, even then, we have those for yeah. Maybe it doesn't even do that. I mean, it stalls. Like I guess it buys some time, right? Because you have a few ways to gain life, and then you can remove a couple early things. But we're not even making tokens well, right? Because we have Citizens Crowbar, we've got Tinker's Tote, and then that's kind of it till you get down to Masterwork Mural and these guys. So yeah, I don't know. Hope this doesn't sound insulting. I just think maybe this is one that work on it a little bit, hop back into the Discord throughout the week, let the brood help you out, give you some ideas, trim down some stuff, figure out the focus. This feels like a case where, and this isn't to single anybody out, but I feel like I've done this with lists before too, so don't feel bad. But this is where I almost feel like this list started with an idea, and then it was like, okay, but I don't want to lose to this deck, and then I have a problem with this card, and then like we pulled some things, we added some things, we pulled some things, we added some things, and then like 8 or 9 changes later, we have a pile that's no longer cohesive because we tried to make sure we had answers for all this stuff, but now it doesn't do the thing that it does well once upon a time. And I feel like that's the deck building trap a lot of people get into. Sometimes you just have to throw caution to win and say, you know what? I'm just going to have a bad matchup against, I don't know, mono black. Or if humans get one of their 2 best draws, I'm just going to struggle against it. That's fine. But I'm going to be better against these other 5 decks that are big or whatever. That's kind of, if you're playing best of 3, that's why you have a sideboard and all that other stuff for the most part, because it helps fill those gaps that the bad matchups are, right? In best of 1, I get it where people but I need a card for this. And I go, like, not really. You know what happens? If I have a bad matchup and I run into it, I hope to high roll. If I don't, that's fine. I take a loss and I just play my next couple of games. The game will just be over in like 3 minutes and I'll start doing the next thing. But yeah, I think if there's any way I could describe this, it's like it just doesn't have a focus and a goal right now. I think if we figured out what that is, then we could probably give better feedback, because this is a case where I don't think any of the cards are terrible. Citizen Crowbar is not great, but maybe even Oaken Siren. So I'm a liar. So there's a couple of cards in here I might change right off the rip. But generally, the key cards, or at least what I think are the key cards, are at least all playable and decent. It's just together, I don't know if they do enough. Lynn says, particularly with Arena, where I don't have all the rares and mythics, I need to be more coherent. That's actually another good point, too. If you're just limited on resources, you need your list to be even tighter, right? Because you're going to be playing sometimes a lesser card than what would normally go in there. So you can't really mess around too much. There was another person who had submitted. OK Scoop, I think, got something in there. So this will be the official last one for the day. This is from MTG Goldfish. We'll snag that one. And then this will be the last list we're going to go over. Y'all had a bunch of good lists today, though. A lot of times where people just like, look at my whatever, my domain list. And I'm like, we already know what that is. There's nothing to really fix on that. It just, oh, why did I do that? I didn't even load the deck up. Here we go. Oh, I have to delete one. Let's delete one. Actually, I kind of want to like let my head sink into that one a little bit. Let me get rid of one of these other lists. I have so many random lists sitting here that I'm probably never going to get back around to. Let's delete this. All right. And then let's load that up. Okay. What do we got? Is it another blue-white list? No, this is the same list. Did it not load the other one? Oh, it might be because I'm missing a card. Probably loaded it toward the bottom. Nope. What is this? Hold on a second. Let me see. All right, let me try now. Nope. Weird. Did it not load? now I'm confused. I think it's this one. Is this the same list? Yeah, it looks like it's the same list. All right. For some reason it loaded toward the bottom. Oh, because I random uncommons that I had. That's why. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, wait a minute. All right. So what are we doing here? We're spelunking. All right, so we have some removal cards, Underdog, Deep Roots, Titania, Tortoise. Spelunking lets us come into play untapped. Hidden Nursery is a cave. Comes at 3/3. Add 1 mana, any color. Are these good? I mean, I guess if other caves can tap, it's fine, I guess. How many things do we have that care about caves? Hidden Necropolis is also a cave. Yeah, I don't know if spelunking makes me want to play all these caves. I mean, spelunking, really, the benefit is just get to ramp up and put another land into play, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. This is really like I don't want to sound insulting when I say this, so I'm gonna apologize up front because it's not meant to sound the way it's going to sound, but I don't know how else to word this. But this just feels like a worse version of all the mid-rangey Golgari lists playing all these caves just for like the random 4 life occasionally off of spelunking. And otherwise, I don't really know. But like, yeah, it's a lands deck, but outside of like these lands, the Cavernous Maw and the Restless Cottage, I mean, maybe we get to like discover every other turn, right? Because we can sack one of these and then maybe put one. Maybe if we have enough mana, we could just do it every turn, possibly. But like, is Forgotten Monument really helping us? At least this can give us extra mana to activate lands. So I mean, this makes sense. But yeah, I'm not. I mean, I like Titania with this setup. It makes sense. Virtue Persistence, just a decent card. Sentinel of Nameless City, it's whatever. How many lands are? I'm assuming there's a lot of lands in here. 27. That's not a terrible number for what you're trying to do. Yeah, I don't know if I'm feeling Forgotten Monuments. I mean, I get it. We want to have more caves, but like at that point, I'm just playing another Cavernous Maw problem. Well, you already have 4. You can't really play more than that. Yeah, Glimpse of the Core is kind of interesting, and it does at least use caves. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm really trying to like convince myself, but I don't know this. You know what? Am I wrong? But is like spelunking just a trap card for a lot of people? Because I feel like I see this on a lot of lists, especially in best of one, and the only times I feel like I lose to this is when I already just have like a bad hand or a bad draw. Like I feel like even with medium draws, I usually beat the decks that are playing spelunking. I don't know if it's doing much. Yeah, Glimpse the Core, I almost like Glimpse the Core more than Spelunking because you're guaranteed to ramp, right? Like you can go find a card and just put it in a land and put it into play. I mean, it has to be like a forest or whatever, I think, but like that's fine. Like I don't hate that. And if you need to, you can go search for a cave, and that's totally reasonable too. And I like the concept of like Tortoise plus the caves and even like Sunken Citadel because then it makes it cheap to activate these things or whatever. And like that's all good. Don't have a problem with any of that. I just Yeah, Forgotten Monument, I'm just not feeling. No, Conduit of World. We talked about earlier. Conduit of Worlds is almost always bad. An Invasion is in the card. Yeah, I don't even know. But even then, does this deck even like? Does Invasion of Zendikar do much for this list? Because we have to get to a situation that we can even attack it. Otherwise, we're just putting 2 lands into play for the sake of putting 2 lands into play, and they have to be basics. So I don't even know if that's a thing. Yeah, I think this is my problem. Like we kind of talked about this like I guess 2 hours ago at this point, but the idea that are we doing a thing just to do it, and how much worse is it than the thing the decks and those colors already do, right? Because we're not playing, I guess, any real way to destroy artifacts or enchantments in this list. Looking through it again, but yeah, so that's. I mean, I guess there's Beseju you could technically try to reuse. So like that's a thing, but there's no Glissa, which we know is really good. There's no Shieldred, which we know is really good, right? We're not playing any of the planeswalkers, which we know that are good. Though I don't know if they would necessarily be great in this list. But not playing those, we're making concessions for trying to play the other things, and I don't know if the benefit is big enough. Like even here, I'm like, is Sentinel of the Nameless City bringing anything to the table? I mean, technically, we're getting another more likely because we're playing more land to get more lands into our hands than we already even get plus and plus one counters. So then the next question becomes, when are we pushing through to kill the opponents? Because right now, if you don't get a big Titania, I don't know when we ever get to be aggressive with this list. I guess maybe if we get to where we can cycle our restless cottages as like 6/6s or whatever, maybe. How are we going to rush down the opponent with creature lands though? That's what I'm wondering. Like, because I would think if you're trying to do the spelunking lands thing, then you want to be playing more sweepers and whatnot, and then emphasizing reusing the lands and then finishing your opponent where they can't deal with all your creature stuff. But I mean, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I get it. Like Wayfinder, I like, and trying to get the blossoming tortoise so you can get cheap activations of your land. I feel all that, but like, it's kind of like okay, if either of those dies early, which is likely, then what does the deck do? Because like individual cards in here aren't as strong as what other cards would be that you could play, and I think that's my concern. And again, the goal is to try to do something different. So I don't want to like abandon the idea and the concept altogether. But I'm really here kind of at a loss. Like, I don't know. Let's ramp for Cultivator Colossus. That's a fun idea. But sadly, Cultivator Colossus is just worse than everything else that's big at this point. But yeah, like Virtue of Persistence, we don't really have a good top end for this. We're just playing it because it's a good card. I mean, good removal, and you hope to steal something from your opponent, maybe, because we don't even have our own things unless we're already set up where we can like try to get Titania again and get another shot at getting the big side. But there's not even a lot we can do with that from our own. I mean, I do like these that they can hit some stuff, but we do have some stuff that they hit that's not necessarily great. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like the idea that you could reuse caves and stuff. Like I'm with you. It makes sense, but I'm just yeah. This is one that like I don't know if I can make changes to it without completely changing the deck. I think maybe that's where I'm at. Because I feel like anything I do, I'm like, okay, well now I want to cut down the number of spelunkies or change them to another card, but then I also want to change like Sentinel Nameless Race. And like, okay, we like teachings, but teachings is kind of only really good with Wayfinder. I mean, it kind of works with Tortoise, but like Tortoise just flips 3 cards anyway. So I'm like, how much do I need this? And then it's like, okay, if I replace those and I put in more of these other things, does it just start look like other Golgari mid-range decks, right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to avoid by offering ideas because I don't want to just be more of the same, or else like you could just be playing those other decks. Yeah, I don't know if I have much to offer here, honestly, other than change Sentinel Nameless Race into something else. You know, yeah, I agree. Caves are safe places for storing food to hold out during the winter. That is not wrong. Um, yeah, I just don't feel like Spelunking's really do. I mean, it does let you reuse these with the Spelunk because they'll come into play untapped. So I mean, that is something to consider. Um, mm, 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 mm. And you got to have a lot of caves so you can activate these, or else these don't do anything. And then you also have the situation of like if you get these caves and these nurseries, they're coming into play tap, so you don't even get to play an early like deep root or whatever. Yeah, this is what I'm gonna say. Just keep working and bring it to the Discord. Um, because this is what I'm gonna have to think on quite a bit. Is spelunking? No, spelunking's an enchantment. Maybe create a diversion playing an actual caves deck. I don't know. I mean, this is a case of, and I don't even hate what you're trying to do. Like I said, I'm seeing the stuff here with like Titania, and then you're getting some life from things in the graveyard with like the Blossoming Tortoise and the teachings and all that. But I think one of the benefits, and just talking about it this way, I think one of the benefits that the other Golgari mid-range decks have is that individual cards are powerful and things you have to constantly deal with, right? Because it's got like bat removing cards from your hand. So now you want the card back that the bat's holding. But then you still have to deal with stuff like Glissa because now you can't attack into a Glissa, but you also don't want to block a Glissa, right? And then if you don't block her, then you can destroy some of your enchantments or whatever, or let them get more cards. Then it's like Shieldred. If you don't deal with Shieldred, then you're just going to die to the Shieldred. Like it's just a barrage of threats of things that are important that you have to deal with or causing frustration for your opponent. Here, it's kind of like, all right, I guess I'll kill your tortoise. And then what does the other stuff do? You know what I mean? That's sort of what I'm trying to avoid. It's just like you might go literally like turn 2 Wayfinder, actually get a land, put it into play a tortoise on 3, put a land into play, but then they just like kill your tortoise. And maybe even have a blocker in the way for the Wayfinder. So now you got to take a turn off to try to like kill the blocker. Hopefully they don't play a second one. So you can still attack with the Wayfinder. Maybe put a land into play or not. Play Titania? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Azoria Soldiers is just Azoria Soldiers. There's not. there's nothing to do. That's just a known deck that already has pretty much all of its choices figured out. It's just removal of choice and what you're worried about in the format. If you have a particular problem, then maybe you make 1 or 2 changes we can talk about. But yeah, that's one I say just hop into the Discord. I don't think you need to overhaul the deck. I mean, the deck is what it is. Yeah, but that's my concern. Like, how do we get more threatening cards in here that also still let the deck do what it's trying to do? I think that's what I'm trying to solve right now, right? Because I don't want to cut too many Spelunkings. So I see what you're trying to do with those, so it makes sense. I obviously do want to cut the Sentinel of the Nameless City. But like, do we cut 1 removal, or maybe do we go without cut downs and maybe try to play better value cards? I don't like. There's got to be room for like Glissas or Shieldreds, that level of card. That like, okay, we still have Plan A, but Plan A requires several cards to work together, right? We have to get lands in the graveyard and use a Wayfinder, or we got to have Spelunking out and get the caves, and there's all these parts that have to be rolling. But do we have some individual cards in the meantime that are going to force the opponent to do things? So maybe they leave some of my engine parts alone, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at. If I were to just off the top make a guess, I'm cutting probably 1 Virtue or Persistence, the 2 Sentinel Nameless Race, 1 Spelunking, adding 2 Glissa, adding 2 Shieldred. Probably where I would start. Two of those. 2 of those. And at least if things even go sideways and they deal with your first early couple of threats or whatever, you have other things that you can still do. Is Bat worth considering? I mean, in theory, yes. But again, those are like, don't get me wrong, like it can stop a problematic card from your opponent's hand. But they'd probably be able to get it back whenever they wanted to, because if you're replacing, let's say you don't put Glissa and you put or Shieldred in here and you put the bats, you're still back to the first problem of not having anything threatening. Because like your opponent doesn't care. You can just hit !Discord if you're on Twitch, and it'll bring up our Discord. The problem is you still don't have anything that's a real threat. So like even if you play bat, they're like, okay, I'll take 8 or 9 damage from the bat over a few turns. I don't really care, because they'll just deal with the next real problem that you have. because the bat's not like the bat works in a lot of decks because it's like, okay, I'm going to take the thing that's going to stop you from dealing with these other things. And then each of those other things is a threat all its own. So now you're just like, okay, well, at some point, if I kill the bat, I get the other removal back, but like I'm still getting beat down by all these other cards, or I'm having to deal with all these planeswalkers, or whatever the case may be. That those become, or even in like the Esper deck, right? Rafine's putting counters on the bat, so now the bat's flying with like a +3 or +4, and now they're gaining life, and like you're doing other things that are adding to it. But without that, I think you're just playing bat. You kind of have bat in the same situation that you're in. So yeah, I would start here with the 2 Glisses, 2 Shieldreds. I think those at least fill in some gaps. We didn't shake the deck up too much. It's still able to do what it was trying to do. And then, like I said, after you work on it, pop it back in the Discord in a day or two. See if we can give some feedback for some changes you want to make or whatever. It's probably going to be a little bit better. But yeah, that's probably where I'd start with that and see what you can turn that into. But okay, I think we got through everybody and everything that's submitted today. that was a lot more than I thought we were going to do. But yeah, please, if you haven't yet, remember, like this video on YouTube if you hadn't hit the like button, so people know you had a good time watching it. That'll help us get more views on these things. If you'd be so kind as to leave a super chat or anything, cool, great. But most importantly, if you want to be a member on YouTube, we actually are giving extra video footage to people that are level 2 at level 1s. You get to vote on everything, on what appears on the channel and whatnot. If you are a level 3, you can get this type of private help all the time. Actually, it's just a service that I offer. Also, if you're on Twitch, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff. Help me out. Speaking of which, let me make sure to give proper shout outs to the proper people. Man, I hate they added so many things in here. They keep adding so many new things. They get all these pop-ups. But Shrug This Life is a follower now on Twitch. Thank you so much. Maudib222 also in there. Stealthy Mage, which is a fun name, so thank you for that. All those follows that came in today. If you did subscribe on YouTube or follow, thank you so much. Much appreciated on that as well. And thanks for the thumbs up over on Facebook. I know a couple of y'all did that as well, so thank you so much. Man, this was an interesting thing. You know, this is a good example of even I'm streaming on both right now. I stream on everything at one time. It's a wonderful thing that technology allows us to do. But I did want to say today is kind of a good example of even this late in the season, right, where we're 2 weeks away, I guess, from the next set going live. We still have all these options to play. Right, even with all these cards available in standard, people say, "Oh, you can only play a handful of decks." That's just not true. We have the ability to play a lot of different things, and people are getting wins with a lot of different things. Like I talked about to kind of start this stream, was this season I've already been at Mythic for like a week, and still a few days to go in the month, and I tank my rank constantly, literally going from like Diamond 1 down to Diamond 4 or whatever, just testing decks. And just the decks I put on video have done well enough to make up all that lost ground multiple times and still get me to Mythic, right? So this idea that all these decks, different creators are playing or whatever, can't win, whatever, just not true. It's just not. Now, I will say, and one of the things I will say, just for complete transparency, is like if you want to play in a tournament, of the, I don't know, 80 decks or whatever we have this season, actually, yeah, it's over 80 decks at this point this season. I might play like half, probably even 70% of them again on the ladder at some point if I just wanted to do something fun, different, whatever. If I were to play in a tournament, maybe only 15 or 20% of those I'm actually going to consider for a tournament, right? Because it's all about efficiency, dealing with certain things. Like, I also know exactly not exactly, but you have a higher percentage chance of knowing the decks you're going to run into in a tournament, like, because it's a much smaller field of decks. That all makes a definitive difference. But on the ladder, it's going to be different decks, different play skills, just you name it. right? So you don't have to only play the top decks. Just the way it is. People believe that's a thing, but it's just not a thing. Let's see. That Slowkirk deck that came out of nowhere proves that the game is so big and complex. Yeah, that's totally true. That was a deck that somebody just came up with on what, like week 8 of the format, right? So totally doable. Uh, Everything I do is well done. Well, I don't know about that. But thank you. I appreciate it. I try to keep making stuff better. I keep trying new things. I keep researching ideas. So, I just try to offer something a little different than what you always see that's out there on YouTube, especially. This week, I'm trying to get a video of underrated cards done. Trying to get a video for Murders at Karlov Manor. Trying to get my favorite cards from the set video done. And then I might show up on another creator's channel doing overrated cards from the set. So should be getting 3, possibly, I'm going to say with the question mark, additional pieces of content from me this week. So there is a lot still to be had and to be done. So it's going to be an interesting time nonetheless this week as we lead up to Murders of Karlov Manor. There is not early access this season, so don't know how that's going to work yet. It's just going to be a barrage of videos and gameplay and whatever for the first like 7 to 10 days while we get all those ideas tested. So I don't know. We may take ideas in the Discord. I may take stuff from YouTube members if there's deck lists that people want to talk about or whatever, or get featured. So I don't know. Just saying, follow me. If members will probably have priority, and then if I need other things or I'm cruising for other ideas, we'll probably default to the Discord. Still 2 weeks before the next set comes out. Not this next weekend, because that's pre-release, but then the following weekend, the set goes on sale. I believe that week on Tuesday, the set goes live. So first full week of February, I think. Could Conduit of Worlds fit into this? I don't put Conduit of Worlds into anything anymore. Like, it's not quite in the adjacent doghouse situation that the others are, but it at least has to sit at the little kids' table when people come over to have dinner. Like, it's just a Conduit of Worlds. Like, and I thought that card had potential. Seriously, I'm lucky I didn't end up like, I liked it. It was like an honorable mention when I was thinking about like possible underrated cards from that set. Fortunately, I didn't commit to it, thankfully, because it ended up being even so much worse than I thought it was going to be. I actually thought it had a chance, and there might still be a world where that's true, but I would argue that if it hadn't happened yet, it's probably going to happen in an older format, because as we move into a world where people are going to want to like collect evidence and use cards in their graveyard, that's just even less room for decks that'll want to play Conduit of Worlds. So if it hadn't had its time yet, it's just probably not going to at this point, which is kind of sad. But that's just kind of the nature of Magic, right? There's a lot of good cards that either just the metagame doesn't fit, or there's just better cards around it or whatever, and they just don't ever get to see the light of day. And we've had times in Magic where cards come out, didn't get played very much, then literally 10 years later, a card gets printed that works perfectly with it. And then, that card from 10 years ago ends up being like a $20 card or whatever. So maybe that's going to be the case for something like Conduit of Worlds. And the other interesting thing about a card like Conduit, it's also not likely to get reprinted during that time because nobody wants it. It's not played in anything. It doesn't fit anywhere. So by the time it does actually find a home, it's probably not going to be that many of them out in the world. So it's kind of like a weird thing. But yeah, I want Conduit of World to be a better card than it is. It's just not. I wish I had a better answer for you. But I think that's going to do it for me, everybody. I'm going to refill my beverage. I'm going to start working on a video. I'm going to watch some wrestling. And then I actually have a small thing. I get to hang out with some friends this evening. So yeah, I still have a packed evening after hanging out with y'all. So I appreciate it, though. It was fun, genuinely. I'm not just saying that. It's always neat to see the different decks that people are working on and the ideas that are out there. As always, follow me on YouTube. I'm there literally, I said subscribe on YouTube, posting up stuff literally every single day. So if you want new deck ideas, new content, perspectives, it's always there. If nothing else, I have shorts going up. I have stuff going up for YouTube members all the time. So like, there's just things. Like lots and lots of things. And like I said, follow me because there's going to be some extra content this week. And one of them might involve another creator if we can get it done. So, yeah, it was a good time, but I got things I got to do. As always, wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please take care of yourselves and your family because there's all kinds of crap in the world. Remember to be awesome. And most importantly, be awesome to each other.